Okay, let's be honest here for a sec. We've all had that, like, childhood image of dinosaurs, right? You know, those giant, kind of clumsy reptiles.
Absolutely, lumbering around in swamps.
Exactly. But get ready for things to get, well, way more interesting. Today we're doing a deep dive into dinosaurs, and spoiler alert, they were way cooler than you probably think. Our guide for this journey is La Ciencia de los Dinosaurios en 100 Preguntas by Jaime Mora Cuadrado.
Great choice.
And here's the cool part. It's originally in Spanish.
Right. Which just goes to show you, um, dinosaur research, it's not just one language, one country. It's a global thing, this quest to, understand these creatures.
It really is like a global puzzle. Everyone's finding their piece, putting it together. And speaking of puzzles, one thing I love about this book is how it shows paleontology. It's not just about digging stuff up. It's like detective work, wouldn't you say?
100%. La ciencia de los dinosaurios. It takes you beyond the bones,
Yeah.
You're not just looking at skeletons. You're trying to figure out how these animals lived, how they behaved, the whole picture.
Right. Those aha moments you get when you finally understand something based on, like, the tiniest clues. Like, for example, the book talks about the site in Argentina, Huevo. They found all these incredibly well-preserved sauropod eggs there.
80 million years old, those eggs. Can you imagine?
80 million. And it's not just about, oh, dinosaurs laid eggs. It tells you about parenting,
Right.
which the book goes into a lot.
Big time. Some dinosaurs were, surprisingly dedicated parents. The book talks about Psittacosaurus. These dinosaurs found fossilized right on top of their nests, like birds today. Shows a whole other side to them.
So we've got dinosaur eggs giving us clues. What other traces did they leave behind? What can we, actually look at?
Footprints. The book gets into ichnology, which sounds super complicated, but it's just the study of trace fossils. And footprints are like the ultimate trace fossil.
So.
They can tell you so much. Were they walking fast, slow, even if they were limping? It's like having a record of their every step.
Like those high-tech labs athletes use now to analyze their gait? Okay, last clue I gotta ask about, and I have to admit, this is out there. We're talking dinosaur pee, right?
You mean Eurolites?
That's the one.
Yeah. It sounds strange, but fossilized pee, it's a gold mine of information. It tells us about their waste systems. Were they more like birds or mammals in that regard? There's a whole debate.
See, you don't get that in your average dinosaur book, but it's important. It's all connected to their metabolism, how their bodies actually worked. And speaking of understanding dinosaurs, I mean, the whole history of how we even discovered them is wild.
Oh, yeah. Talk about paradigm shifts, big personalities. La ciencia de los dinosaurios. It gets into all of it.
Right. We all picture those amazing skeletons in museums, but, like, someone had to find them first. So give us the highlights. Who are some of the big names in early dinosaur hunting?
Well, one that always comes to mind is William Buckland. He was actually a priest, but also like this hugely passionate paleontologist. Really wanted to understand the natural world.
A priest digging up dinosaurs. That's not something you see every day. It kind of speaks to how science and religion, even back then, were grappling with each other.
For sure. And Buckland, he was just one of many. The book talks about this whole other level of drama, the Bone Wars.
The Bone Wars. That sounds intense.
It absolutely was.
Yeah.
You had Othniel Charles Marsh and Edward Drinker Cope, two American paleontologists who, well, they really, really didn't like each other.
Let me guess, things got a little competitive.
A little. They were sabotaging each other's digs. I mean, we're talking full-on rivalry here.
Wow, talk about taking your work personally. But all that rivalry, it did lead to some incredible discoveries, right?
Oh, absolutely. They were so busy trying to outdo each other that they ended up finding and naming tons of dinosaurs. Stegosaurus, Triceratops. I mean, those are iconic names.
So out of all that drama came some major breakthroughs. It reminds you that, sometimes progress isn't always like a straight line. It's messy. But we got some amazing discoveries because of it. So we've got all this happening in America, but like we said earlier, this dinosaur fever, it was global, right?
Totally. And La Ciencia de los Dinosaurios, it captures that global fascination really well. Like, there's this great story about Diplodocus diplomacy.
Diplodocus diplomacy. Now, that's a phrase I haven't heard before.
Right. So you had this guy, Andrew Carnegie, super wealthy industrialist. He donated plaster casts of a Diplodocus skeleton, a huge one, to museums all over the world.
Wait, so I could, walk into a museum today and there might be a Carnegie dinosaur replica just standing there.
You totally could. And back then, these casts were a sensation. They brought dinosaurs to life for people, made them real. It really sparked global interest.
I love that. bringing dinosaurs to the world. Okay, but hold on. The book mentions something about the Titanic, like the ship. What's the connection there?
All right, so this is where it gets even wilder. You know the Mount Temple? The ship that almost made it to the Titanic in time?
Right, tragic story.
Tragic, and here's the thing. It sank, too, and it was carrying dinosaur bones.
No way. So there are dinosaur bones just sitting at the bottom of the ocean right now.
Yep, a whole shipment lost to the sea. It really makes you think, 100 years ago, we were just scratching the surface of understanding dinosaurs.
Totally. And speaking of understanding, let's talk about, well, some of the things we got wrong. Because for a long time, the image of dinosaurs, it wasn't exactly accurate, was it?
Not even close.
Yeah.
Early on, we pictured them as these slow, almost clumsy creatures, too big to really function,
Yeah.
The book talks about how back then people just assumed reptiles were kind of primitive, so of course dinosaurs must have been too. It wasn't just about size, right? It was this whole idea that they were just kind of primitive,
Yeah.
But then things started to change. The book talks about this really cool period, the dinosaur renaissance.
Dinosaur renaissance. Okay, now that sounds like something I want to hear more about. Did they suddenly discover dinosaurs were, like, doing ballet? What changed?
Well, not quite ballet, but it was a revolution for sure. Scientists like John Ostrom, Robert Bakker, they really challenged those old ideas. They said, no, dinosaurs weren't slow at all. They were active, fast-moving. More like birds, actually.
Okay, so not just hanging out in swamps. This is a very different picture.
It was a total shift of the dinosaur renaissance. It made people rethink everything. Their biology, their behavior, were they warm-blooded, agile, did they live in groups? It all became a question again.
So what sparked this big change? What evidence made everyone go, wait a minute, maybe we had it wrong?
One word, feathers.
Wait, feathers? Like, on dinosaurs?
Yes. It totally shook things up. There was this amazing discovery, Sinosauropteryx, a small dinosaur, perfectly preserved, and guess what? It had these, proto-feathers. And the book really digs into this. Feathers weren't just for flying, they were for insulation, for showing off even.
So we've gone from slow, scaly giants to feathered dinosaurs. That's a big change. This is blowing my mind. Okay, so we're starting to realize dinosaurs were way more complex than we thought. But with all these new discoveries, how do you even begin to, organize all these different species?
The book mentions something about how they're classified, right?
Yeah, it's key to understanding their evolution, really. La ciencia de los dinosaurios. It explains how dinosaurs are split into two main groups, Saurischian and Ornithischia, all based on their hip bones, believe it or not.
Lizard-hipped and bird-hipped.
Oh, right.
I have a feeling this is where it gets a little tricky. It does. The funny thing is, birds actually evolved from the lizard-hipped dinosaurs, the theropods, not the bird-hipped ones, like you think. Yeah. Evolution. It loves to keep us guessing.
Clearly. And speaking of things that make you go, how is that even possible? Let's talk size for a second. Those sauropods, like the Argentinosaurus the book talks about, those were some massive creatures.
Absolutely massive. And Argentinosaurus, that's a perfect example of just how gigantic sauropods got.
Yeah.
We're talking about an animal that had to eat, tons of food every single day.
My mind can't even process that, which begs the question, how did they eat enough with those tiny heads? Seriously, that's always baffled me.
It's a huge question mark for paleontologists, even today. The book talks about how, their long necks must have helped and their digestive systems were probably super efficient. But the exact way they gathered and ate that much food, it's still a mystery.
It's amazing to me we can know so much, but something as basic as how did they eat is still a question mark. Okay, switching gears for a sec. What about dinosaur parenting? We touched on those preserved nests, dedicated parents like Psittacosaurus, but was that, the norm? Were all dinosaurs good moms and dads?
Good question. And the book gets into that. Turns out there was a lot of variation, just like animals today, right?
Yeah.
Different parenting styles. Like the oviraptor, people thought it was this egg thief, hence the name, right? Egg Caesar. But later, they found out, nope, it was actually a really dedicated parent taking care of its own eggs.
Wow, so a total misunderstanding.
And then you have cases like Psittacosaurus. Fossils suggest they might have had, group nesting sites.
Group nesting, like a dinosaur daycare.
Pretty much. Adults taking care of young, maybe even from different families. It hints at this whole social structure we're just beginning to understand.
This is incredible. Dinosaurs with feathers, complex social lives, maybe even dinosaur preschool. This is not at all how I pictured things. This whole deep dive, it's really changed everything I thought I knew. But I have to ask, what's beyond the book? What mysteries are scientists still trying to solve?
La ciencia de los dinosaurios. It covers so much ground, but there's still so much we don't know. Like, it talks about their bones, their movement, what they ate. But what about what they sounded like?
Dinosaur sounds. I have to admit, I never even thought about that. What do you think? Did they roar, like in the movies? I mean, that's the classic image, right? A big roar. But does that hold up, scientifically speaking?
Well, it's possible some did have those really loud, booming calls. The book talks about how their skulls, their jaws, some were built for it, for sure.
Yeah.
But there's also this new research suggesting some dinosaurs might have made sounds more like coos, almost
But,
like mumbles.
well, then, Coos, you're saying some of these massive creatures might have sounded more like, what, pigeons than roaring monsters?
Stranger things have happened. It's definitely a possibility. See, we're only just starting to understand the range of sounds they could make. It's probably a lot more diverse than we give them credit for.
Makes you wonder, what else don't we know? This whole deep dive, it's really been eye-opening. Who knew we could learn so much from fossils, footprints, even, fossilized pee?
Right. That's paleontology for you. It's like this giant puzzle, and every little piece, it tells a story. And as the Ciencia de los Dinosaurios shows us, it's a story that keeps changing, evolving. What we think we know today, it could be completely different tomorrow, all thanks to a new discovery.
It really makes you appreciate the work these scientists do, the digging, the research, the constant search for answers. It's kind of inspiring, actually.
It is. And the best part is, we're not even close to done yet.
Yeah.
There's still so many mysteries out there waiting to be solved. Every new fossil, every new study, it has the potential to rewrite everything we thought we knew.
So, to everyone listening, next time you see a dinosaur, whether it's a skeleton, a movie monster, even just a picture in a book, take a second to think about how we got that image in the first place.
Think about the scientists, the clues they follow, and the fact that the story of dinosaurs, it's still being written. Who knows what amazing discoveries are just around the corner? Maybe one day we'll even be able to hear those dinosaur sounds for ourselves, bring their whole world back to life.
Now, wouldn't that be something? Until then, keep exploring, keep asking questions, and never lose that sense of wonder, especially when it comes to the incredible world of dinosaurs.